Welcome to the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur Podcast. I want you to be rich. Yes, I want abundant financial success for your business. But I don't just care about your business making money. I care about you too. I want you to be rich in happiness, in the impact you make, in your relationships, and in how you give back. I'm Anna. I built my six-figure business as a side hustle while I was pregnant with my daughter in 2016. Now I've helped dozens of women do the same. I'm here to help you build a profitable, heart-centered, fully booked business with the latest tips on sales and visibility, with proven mindset hacks, and sneak peeks behind the scenes with what's working right now in the online space and in my business. Ready to make more money with heart? Let's go.
Good morning, friends. Today, I want to talk to you about being a little more fearless. Maybe in honor of Taylor Swift's new album coming out in a month. But really, I've just been spending a lot of time thinking about kind of this MO that I started as a very, very young girl. I remember, so I did a lot of theater and drama and auditions for musicals and plays growing up. And I remember from a very young age, like one of my very first auditions was for Annie. And I remember wearing a green dress with sunflowers on it and doing my best, but really telling myself, like, Anna, just tell yourself you didn't get the role so that if you do get it, it'll be a surprise. But if you don't get it, you won't be disappointed. Like, I remember consciously, like, it's wild how much as smart women, we know we're smart. We know we're meant for a lot, but we do a lot to self-protect, right? And I've really maintained a lot of that my whole life, which is like, Anna, don't expect too much. And in some ways that's kept me from being too disappointed, but in other ways that really set me up for not going as big as I can, right? And I really found that like this got me pretty well through corporate life, but I found that this model did not work for entrepreneurship. It kind of came crashing down because I realized, if you see in my book, Freedom Fund, I had an illustrator. She did an amazing job illustrating one of these concepts. And one of these concepts that blew my mind that I had her illustrate was this idea that when we shoot for a small goal, and then we hit the small goal, we're actually doing worse for ourselves than if we made this huge goal and we, quote, didn't make the goal, right? But we did further than if we would have made the small goal. For example, if you're like, I'm going to do this webinar, right? And I want to get 25 people on the webinar. And then you get 25 people on the webinar and maybe you don't even get anyone to convert, right? Because really, maybe you needed 50 people to get 2 conversions or something, who knows, right? Not that you can't convert with a small audience, and then maybe you have a different reality where you set a goal of getting 100 people on your webinar and you don't meet your goal of 100, but you get 57 people on and you end up getting 2 conversions, right? In some ways, when you set the goal of 100 and then you only get 57 on your webinar, it's a little disappointing, right? But in other ways, because you set the bar higher, you force yourself to take bigger action, because the action you need to take to get 25 people on your webinar versus 100, you're posting more, you're a little bit more excited, you're asking your friends to share, right? You're showing up with bigger action, you're sending more emails. And it's so true that what we think and believe and the goals we set for ourselves so dictate the action that we take. And when we are in a place of fear or lowly able to tolerate uncomfortable thoughts. So what happens when we set a big goal and we don't meet it? We feel uncomfortable. We feel discouraged, right? But I talk about like not making it about ourselves, right? Okay, my business has this goal. My business has this problem. Not like I have this goal. I have this problem. But I really think that for me, I've been thinking a lot lately about fear, about negativity bias. There was a study done in Harvard that showed that 46% of the time, our mind is wandering, right? We're not in the present. We're either worrying about the past, worrying about the future, and we're unhappy in the 46% of the time our minds are wandering. And I really think for me, this comes to a sense of control. I like to be prepared in life. Like, I am a prepared girl. In a lot of ways, that serves me in my business because I plan ahead. I'm very organized, and that serves me, that serves my clients. But in some ways, it does not serve me. And there can be a time, and you know that line for you, where your fears, your worries, your anxieties aren't helping you be prepared. It's really slowing you down. It's really making you play small. It's really making you, or for me, really making me underestimate myself. And in order to estimate ourselves, we really have to be in a place with owning how amazing we are. What a great job we're doing. I've been working with several clients on this lately and just really talking about how for men, for the most part, overestimate their ability. Women often underestimate their ability. So often when I help women with their messaging, with their marketing, with their sales tactics, right? They feel like they are overselling themselves. But in my mind, I'm like, no, you're finally reflecting yourself accurately. You've just been chronically underselling yourself. You've been chronically downplaying how awesome you are. And this is why I love, let me just take you behind the scenes for a minute, helping women with marketing and niching and messaging. And the reason it's so hard for women think like, oh, I can just make this little one-liner. It is not about that. It is about owning who you are and how amazing you are. And that's why it's so hard, but it's why it's so awesome, because on the other side of that, whether it takes 60 days, 90 days, you're able to not just have a better marketing message that's converting people to buy from you, but you're really changing the way you see yourself, and you're really seeing more accurately. In my mastermind, I have a worksheet called Overcoming Underselling. And sometimes women will repeat the mastermind, but I make them redo that worksheet every time. And it's basically making a list of all the amazing things that they've done, right? When we stop working for corporate, often we stop making resumes, right? I don't know about you, but when I was in corporate, I was updating my resume like every 90 days, every 6 months, just keeping it up to date with the trainings that I was taking, with the certifications I was getting. And in entrepreneurship, we stopped doing this. Right? A resume really is this beautiful marketing document of how cool you are. And I mean, not that it encompasses everything, but I really encourage you to sit down and write down, like, in business, this is what I've done. This is what I've accomplished. This is what I'm proud of in my life. These are the concerts that I've attended. These are the clients that I've been able to serve. These are the results I've been able to get my clients to get, right? And from that place, be able to express it and to tell your audience, hey, I'm pretty awesome, because they're not going to know that if you don't tell them. Another analogy I told my mastermind ladies last week, we were doing a brand keyword workshop, and I really talked about how in big organizations, the people that produce the product, right? The product engineers, the scientists, those are not the same people typically in the marketing department, right? In fact, they probably like stay in opposite sides. So it can be really weird to think through our roles, like who you are as a coach or as a website designer often is distinct from who you are when you're showing up in the marketing and thinking about getting people to pay you money that have not paid you money yet. Often you're putting on a different hat, putting on a different persona. Not that you want to be completely different, right? But often those, what it takes to get someone to buy who doesn't know us, who's probably overwhelmed, is different than someone who's invested in the change and we have a relationship with. We're able to push them a little bit more. We'll be a little more honest with them, right? Like really show up for them in maybe a wider way versus maybe our marketing is a little more niched and narrow so that they can find us when they're searching on Google and on Instagram and on YouTube. But I really think this goes back to seeing ourselves accurately. Okay, back to the fear part, because this is what I want this podcast to be on and what I want you to narrow in on this week. I really feel the message that it's time to reevaluate how much time and energy you're putting in your fears. Right? You know that saying, like, what if all the energy we put into our fears, what if we put that into our dreams and our hopes and what's possible? And I know entrepreneurship is kind of like a continual, like, kick in the pants, because we're continually like, we're setting these big goals. And for me, I am not meeting most of my goals, right? I'm doing amazing and my business is growing every month and I'm making more and more money, but I'm making these big goals and I'm not always meeting them. But remembering that's not the point. The point is not to meet the goals. The point is to set goals that keep you growing, that keep you making more money every month. That's the point of goals, right? And this is kind of a mind trip if you grew up with getting A+ all the time and feeling like that's what is success, right? In entrepreneurship, that if you are continually meeting your goals, you are not setting big enough goals. I remember telling my coach, like, my closing rate for my sales calls, and she was just not impressed, because she was like, if you're closing all of your sales calls, that's telling me you're not getting enough people on the phone that are like on the fence of working with you. You're only getting people on the phone that are like already a heck yes to you. And that's not a sales call, right? That's just a formality. And I was like, how dare you? But it's so true, right? Okay. So what I want you to do is really ask yourself, what are some of the fears that have been haunting me and plaguing me that I've been living my life around? And again, there are some fears that are important to pay attention to. I'm not saying that, right? It's important to react when there is a legitimate fear. But I really want you to maybe even write down. I think our mindset world says like, oh, only think positive thoughts. No. If you know me, I'm a big fan of like also being able to talk about the fears that are holding us back and sorting out like, are they true? And if so, how do we make an action plan for them? Or actually, this isn't legitimate at all. And this is based on something I need to process or do an exercise around. But really getting clear on what is my negativity bias right now, right? Like our negativity bias is our brains naturally will see the bad in it, right? Because our brain is trying to protect us, right? We see an object in a bush, we're automatically thinking that object is going to hurt me, right? Our brains are biologically this way to protect us. Our brains are not designed for entrepreneurship in that our brains are designed to keep us safe and help us play small, right? To help us live in a world where there were bears in bushes and we were living in huts, right? My daughter is doing a Kumiye project right now, and she literally is making a hut out of pine needles and straw and all these natural materials. And it just got me thinking about how differently we live now, right? In houses. And again, who's to say which was better or worse, right? But it really is the reminder that a lot of times the things that we perceive as threats, or even think about in the past decade, the things that you were afraid of, like, did they even come true? And for me, I can 100% say the things I have been most afraid of in my life have not come true. And the bad things that did happen, like, really were out of the blue, right? Like I didn't even prepare myself for it. So I think it's just reminding ourselves that the obsession with negativity and with fear and negative thinking, it really does not serve us. It really does not protect us. And for me, I even think about like back to my divorce and stuff. A lot of the stuff that kept me in my unhealthy relationship for too long was actually fear. Right? Fear of what others would think of me, fear of getting hurt on my way out. Like fear, it's so interesting because fear is trying to protect us. But for me, when I think back, fear often kept me in bad situations, right? Or sometimes there's negative things that happen on the way to good things, right? Like as you're getting visible in your business, someone might leave a negative comment on your reel or whatever, right? Like we're afraid of those micro negativities that are actually keeping us from the big positive. And for me, when I think about my relationship, like all these micro fears, they were kind of legit in a way, but it really, they were micro fears on the way to the macro happiness. And I think we forget that we're strong, we're resilient, and we can handle it. And either we're playing it small and staying locked in fear. That's not fun either. Or we're a little bit uncomfy on the way. Like what I realize is life is kind of uncomfy either way, whether we take risks and we have the growing pains, right? My kids really had growing pains. I don't think I had growing pains growing up, but it's so interesting to see that my kids legitimately had like pain in their bodies, and that growth can be literal pain is so interesting to see that. I think I told you guys a few years ago when I was living with my parents during that hard time of my life, there were monarch butterflies, like 20 monarch butterflies that hatched in our backyard. Like what a little miracle, right? But it was so wild to see these caterpillars really grow into butterflies and break out of their chrysalis. And it just did not look comfortable. It really looked painful. And I think there's the pain of growth, and then there's also the pain of not growing. I've definitely been in seasons of being paralyzed by fear. And for example, I remember like for 90 days, like I was really stuck in my niche and messaging and spiraling in some of that in inaction, where really it's action that gives us a lot of the clarity, like, oh, that worked, that didn't work. But it feels a lot safer to be swirling in fear and in inaction, but really it's more miserable. I know for me, every time I've swirled and been stuck in fear, it has been way more miserable than the times that I'm actually, because for me, like the preparation, the dread of it is almost worse than the thing itself, right? Because again, I think we're self-protecting. We're trying to think of every angle and scenario. So let's just take a breath. Let's just take a breath and just remind yourself, what are the fears that are holding me back right now? And how many of them are legitimate, right? That maybe I want to make a plan for. I think I told you girls a story that one of my clients,
it was a legitimate fear. She had very debilitating migraines. So her fear was, I'm going to fully book my business and then I'm going to have these migraines and cancel all my clients. That's a legitimate fear, right? So we actually made an email draft for her of emails that she could send her clients like 5 minutes before a session that would say like, hey, I've got a debilitating migraine. We're going to reschedule. But like, obviously that's not ideal, but let me tell you, like I have never had a client not be understanding when there's a true emergency. But so often we have these fears, and instead of taking action on it, we just let it loom over our head. She actually, was able to sign clients and didn't have to use the emails, but having the emails there helped her feel good about it, right? Because anytime we feel like a fear is going to stand in the way of our core values, taking care of our clients well, being a really good service provider, being a really good parent, being a humble person, being a person that gives back in the world, being a person that's not arrogant or contributing to toxicness online, so permission to take action if the fear feels legitimate, whatever that means to you. And then the other thing is if it really is not a legitimate fear and it's just coming from our desire to control, it's being willing to do the things, right? Instead of reducing our anxiety by not being in action or by trying to be in control, it's reducing our anxiety a different way. Maybe it's talking it out with your coach. I always encourage my clients to tell me their fears and their blocks, and that it's safe, no matter how silly they sound, to just let it out and to process, right? Maybe for you, it's writing it down. Maybe for you, it's doing a meditation. Maybe for you, lately, I've been, don't judge me, okay? I've been watching Nate the Hoof Guy videos on Facebook. I love, I'm not a big fan of like scrolling the general feed, but like every once in a while, I'll find something that really fascinates me. And he's not even on Instagram, you guys. He's only on Facebook, but I don't even know what it's called. Maybe he's a veterinarian for agricultural animals. I'm probably getting this all wrong if you're an ag girl, but he cleans out, and when different animals have infections or problems on their feet, he mends them and repairs them and bandages them so kindly. And there's just something so healing about that. Anyway, I digress. Finding ways to distract yourself. I just distracted myself in a way that feels kind, right? Like instead of reducing our anxiety by control and obsession, reducing our anxiety by prayer, by meditation, by journaling, I love to hold a candle. If I'm feeling anxious, I love to hold a candle. You guys know I have a meditation corner. I love to read. I love to listen to meditations, like guided meditations on YouTube or whatever it is, and just giving your brain anxiety relief, but not in the way of controlling or self-sabotaging or self-protecting, right? And not being mean to yourself, like, how dare I can't believe I'm still stuck on this thing or swirling on this thing and spiraling on this thing. Instead of like, okay, no, it makes a lot of sense that I'm stuck in fear. In fact, most people stay stuck in fear, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if I want to grow my business and do something brave and make a lot of money online in a way that doesn't take a lot of time, right? In a way that's productive, in a way that's on a 3-day work week, I need to be able to manage my fear. So I'm going to be very intentional about not avoiding my fear. I'm going to take my ostrich head out of the sand. I'm going to look at my fear and I'm going to manage it, right? Because so often when we refuse to look at our fear, it actually is running the show. When we actually look at it and talk about it, we're afraid to do that because we're like, oh, will it make it more true? No, it won't. Right? As we look at it and talk about it, it actually reduces the shame around it. Like shame operates so well in secrecy, right? And not just in secrecy from others, but in the secrecy of our own self, right? So often we're not able to even say in front of ourselves, I'm ashamed of this thing. I'm afraid of this thing. I see this so often with my clients with debt. There's nothing wrong with debt. I've had debt before. Having debt doesn't make you a better or worse person. It just is what it is. We're going to die with debt or savings or whatever. And that doesn't make us a more worthy or less worthy person. But there's a lot of shame around debt. Right? And I always encourage my clients to talk with me about their debt. Number one, because often we can do things to manage it better. I had no idea about debt management until I really did more research around like getting it to a balance transfer credit card and getting it on zero interest. I didn't know about any of that. So I was paying way too high of interest, right? Shame keeps us out of action that will actually help us, right? Figuring out your mindset. I'm a big fan of allowing yourself to save towards positive goals while you're paying off your debt. Not this idea of like, oh, I'm a bad girl and I have to pay off my debt before I can enjoy myself, right? Really making an intentional plan and changing your mindset around money, even while you have debt, whether it's $10,000 or $100,000, I don't care. but really allowing yourself to talk about whatever is plaguing you or overwhelming you, and just letting it out into daylight, I find can be so useful. Maybe it's a fear around visibility and showing your face more online, or growing your audience, or maybe you want to make more money, but you're also nervous about taking on clients and doing launches and being on social media more and getting fully booked, right? Then when I talk about with my clients, they realize like, oh my gosh, I actually don't have to be on social media that much, or oh my gosh, I can hire a team to help me serve my clients, right? Often it's talking about it and bringing it to light that really helps to start to solve the problem. And so maybe you just want to write down some of your fears, right? When I was really stuck in my niche and my messaging, I wrote down my messaging blocks. I was afraid of messaging my business in a way that didn't articulate me well, in a way that, what if I make my messaging so attractive and a lot of people sign and then I'm overwhelmed? I didn't want to narrow down and leave anybody out. And so really at every stage in my business, writing down my blocks has helped me. Writing down my visibility blocks, writing down my sales blocks, like the fear of people thinking, feeling icky, or people thinking that I'm doing something wrong, right? Writing out the negative fears and doing something about it and sharing it with someone, and not being afraid to look it in the face and say, you're not going to hold back. You're not going to hold me back, right? You're not going to take up that 46% of my mind, right? Maybe you'll take up 10%. It's good to live with some fear, with some honesty about what's happening, right? But not 50%. And really assigning for your brain, okay, you can take, thank you for cautioning me, thank you for warning me, but you're not going to drive the car, right? What's that? There's an amazing book. I think it might be Elizabeth Gilbert that has that illustration about like, okay, fear, like you can be in the back seat, you can manage the snacks, like you're there, but you're not going to drive the car. I'm going to drive the car with my heart. I'm going to drive the car with my vision. I'm going to drive the car with an open mind and this belief that we only have one life, right? That we only have one precious life, and I'm not going to live it afraid. I'm going to live it alive. I'm going to live it with calculated risk, right? I'm going to live it with my heart on fire, with my passion. I'm going to help as many people as I can. And I'm going to keep bringing myself back to this place anytime I get lost in fear. Okay. If you have a fear you want to share with me, feel free to email it to me. I would love to hold space for you. And just even as you share it, you'll start to see it start to loosen its grip. Maybe there was a season in your life where you had to live in fear, where you had to live in paranoid caution, but really reminding yourself, number one, if you are in an unsafe situation, like get yourself out of there, right? But otherwise reminding yourself, maybe even doing, I love tapping, right? I am safe. I'm safe in my body. I'm safe. It's safe to take action. It's safe to be brave. I'm strong. I'm resilient. I can handle whatever it is, quote, a failed launch, or if one of my reels flops, or like, it's fine. It has nothing to do with me, right? I'm a worthy, amazing, beautiful person, whether my business succeeds or fails, whether I have a ton of money or not a lot of money. And coming to that place of worthiness and peace and beauty is what helps you have more success in the actual world, right? Sending you the biggest hug. And here's your invite to the 3-Day Entrepreneur Mastermind if you'd like me to be your coach for 6 months and navigate these things with you. Yes, your goals. Yes, your dreams. Yes, launch planning and reviewing your sales emails, but also being willing to talk about some of those fears that are holding you back from your biggest potential, from building your empire, from building your $1 million business. Or maybe for you, it's like, no, Anna, I just want 50K a year. Whatever it is for you, I want to help you build it. I want to help you release fear. Sending you the biggest hug. Sign up for a free CEO assessment. They're just 20 minutes. If you want more information on the mastermind and just want to ask me questions, especially if we've never met before, that can just be a great way for me to give you some practical strategy and advice, and you can see if my coaching style is a fit for you. Happy to chat. I'll also put a link to the info page. My designer did an amazing job on the info page that has so many client stories of women that went from making nothing or just a few thousand a month to really growing to 6-figure businesses and multi-6-figure businesses on a 3-day work week, on part-time hours. Whether you are a done-for-you provider like a designer or a VA, or you are a coach or consultant or course creator, I want to help you design a business model that helps you get to 6-figure success and beyond on 3-day work week. Whether you're starting out or whether you've been in business for a while, but your business really has not gotten to 6 figures and not gotten off the ground, it is not too late for you. Maybe you took a break and are reemerging, but I would love to help be that 6 months of momentum for you. Thanks for hanging out today. Please hit that subscribe button so you can make sure to stay updated anytime a new episode drops. And I would love for you to join me in my free Facebook community. It's called The Heart-Centered Entrepreneur. We discuss the podcast episodes. I regularly go live and do free trainings. And you may even meet your newest biz bestie. So you can join at heartcenteredcommunity.com. It's absolutely free, and I cannot wait to see you in there.